Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted blindly? The pain and sense of disillusionment can be devastating, can't they? Imagine discovering that this betrayal wasn't the end, but the beginning of a surprising journey. That's exactly what happened to me. When my world collapsed and the pain of betrayal seemed unbearable, an unexpected revelation about an ancestral secret changed everything. How would you react if you discovered that your suffering wasn't just a twist of fate, but an opportunity to understand something much deeper? What if I told you that the key to transforming your pain into growth might be hidden in your own roots? In this video, I'll share how this discovery not only helped me heal, but also redefined my outlook on life and betrayal. Get ready to be surprised and to see your own challenge in a new light. Are you ready to discover the secret that changed my perspective?
The soft autumn breeze caressed Arya's face as she walked aimlessly through the streets of Columbus, her thoughts a storm of emotions. Dry leaves danced around her, but none could stifle the turmoil brewing within her. The romantic dinner she had planned with Benjamin, her boyfriend, now seemed like a distant echo, a memory of what should have been, but which quickly turned into a nightmare. She stopped in front of the restaurant where he had invited her, but she wasn't alone. A tightness in her chest made her step back when she spotted Benjamin through the window, laughing and toasting with a woman with long hair and a red dress that shimmered under the lights of the place. The world around her stopped. His laughter, which once filled her with joy, now felt like deep stabs in her soul. Seeing the intimacy between the two, she felt shattered, as if every piece of her being had been ripped apart. "Arya, are you okay?" A familiar voice brought her back to reality. It was her friend Clara, who had been watching her from afar with concern. Arya forced a smile, but the pain was unbearable. She didn't want to say anything, didn't want to share her misery. She just shook her head, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to escape. Clara, sensing the gravity of the situation, squeezed her friend's arm. "Let's go home. You need some time. I'll go with you." Without protest, Arya let Clara guide her, while her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Her grandmother's house had always been a refuge for her, a place where memories intertwined with warmth and love. Upon entering, the smell of coffee and freshly baked cake enveloped her, but the happiness she once felt in that space now seemed distant. "Arya, dear, how are you?" Her grandmother, a woman with wise eyes, observed her with concern. I'm fine, Grandma. I'm just a little tired." The grandmother didn't seem convinced, but she respected her granddaughter's silence. Arya walked to the bedroom, where she found an old wooden box on an ancient shelf. Her heart raced as she opened the lid and discovered yellowed, handwritten letters that belonged to the women in her family. Each letter seemed to pulse with stories of love, pain, and overcoming. Arya felt drawn to those words, as if they were calling for her attention. She sat on the bed and began to read. The first letter spoke of a forbidden love, a romance that defied the conventions of the time. The words danced before her eyes, and the connection with those women who came before her grew increasingly intense. They had faced betrayals, losses, and hardships, but never let those define them. "Love is a battle worth fighting, but it's also the force that drives us forward," she read aloud, her voice trembling. Hearing the phrase, her grandmother peeked into the room with curiosity. "What are you reading, my dear?" Arya looked at her grandmother, feeling a mix of pain and relief. It was as if those letters offered a glimpse of hope amid her despair. "They are letters from our ancestors, Grandma. They went through pain like this too, didn't they?" Her grandmother nodded, a sad smile on her lips. "Yes, Arya, the women in our family have always been strong, even in the face of adversity. What you're feeling now isn't the end, but the beginning of a journey of self-discovery." Her grandmother's words echoed in Arya's mind, and she began to realize that her pain could be transformed into something meaningful. The stories of love and resilience of the women who preceded her were a legacy that now called to her. She wasn't alone. She never had been. As tears rolled down her face, a spark of hope began to shine within her, a spark that promised a future where love and independence could coexist, and Arya was determined to discover how that could manifest in her life. Arya sat at her grandmother's kitchen table, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air, while the morning light filtered through the lace curtains. With a pen in hand, she looked at the blank notebook before her, a space that longed for her words, her emotions. The box of old letters, which she had previously opened with a heavy heart, now became a source of inspiration. Memories of women who faced battles, whose lives were testimonies of strength and resilience, danced in her mind. "Are you okay, dear?" Her grandmother, Dona Helena, interrupted her thoughts. The woman, with gray hair and deep blue eyes, seemed to have read Arya's mind. "I'm trying to make sense of it all," Arya replied, gesturing towards the letters. "I discovered that the women in our family were so strong. I have so much to learn from them." Dona Helena sat across from Arya at the table. They faced unimaginable challenges. Each of them, in some way, shaped who we are today. It's not just about pain, but about how to overcome it. Arya nodded, feeling the connection with her ancestors growing inside her. The stories she had read weren't just accounts of the past, but a living legacy that pulsed in her veins. "I want to reconnect with that. I want to find my strength too." "Write about it, my child. Put your emotions on paper. Writing can be a great ally, a refuge." Her grandmother smiled encouragingly, and her words lit a fire within Arya. With a deep sigh, Arya opened the notebook and began to write, each word unraveling like a thread of hope. "Betrayal broke me, but I don't want this pain to define who I am. The women in my family fought and loved, and so can I." The letters danced across the page, releasing a weight that once seemed unbearable. As she wrote, Arya heard the doorbell ring. "I'll get it!" Her grandmother got up, and Arya heard her footsteps receding. In the background, a mix of anxiety and curiosity began to grow in her. Who could be at the door? Moments later, Dona Helena returned to the kitchen with a smile that lit up her face. "Look who's here to see you!" She stepped aside, revealing Sarah, her childhood friend, who now stood at the entrance with a sparkle in her eyes. "Arya, it's been so long," Sarah exclaimed, advancing to hug her. The embrace was warm and comforting, like a blanket on a cold day. "I heard what happened." Arya pulled back slightly, looking into Sarah's eyes. "Yes, it was hard, but I'm trying to find a way to get back up." "You've always been strong, Arya. I remember the stories you used to tell about your ancestors. They must have inspired you to come here." Sarah smiled, and Arya felt a wave of gratitude. "I'm learning more about them. It's incredible how these women faced so much and still managed to rise again. And you can too. You're not alone. Let's reconnect. Let's explore this together." Sarah's enthusiasm was contagious, and Arya felt a surge of hope. "You're right. I want to know more about our roots, about what binds us. Can we do this together?" Arya asked, her heart filling with determination. "Of course. Let's get together and research. It can be fun and, who knows, inspiring. Let's turn this pain into strength together." The sparkle in Sarah's eyes was undeniable, and Arya felt that, with her friend's support, she could face any storm. As they talked, Arya realized that every word exchanged, every shared laugh, was a step toward healing. The idea of exploring her roots, of discovering the legacy of strength and courage that ran in her veins, seemed increasingly possible. She wasn't just seeking to understand her ancestors, but also to rediscover herself through them. "I want you to help me write more about this, Sarah. I'm starting a journal, and I need an outside perspective. Shall we do this together?" Arya proposed, her voice laden with hope. "Yes, let's do it. I'll help you find your voice." Sarah's smile was a reflection of the determination that was now growing inside Arya, a determination that would propel her on a new journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Arya took a deep breath as she walked towards the community center, where her first self-defense class would take place. The sun was shining brightly, but the light couldn't fully dissipate the shadow that Benjamin's betrayal had left on her heart. She needed to strengthen herself, not just physically, but emotionally. With each step, she felt the weight of her pain being replaced by growing determination. As she entered the hall, the sound of laughter and animated conversations enveloped her. The atmosphere was full of people of different ages, all there with a common goal: to learn how to protect themselves. Arya sat in a corner, allowing herself to observe the interactions around her. The positive energy began to affect her, and she remembered the letters she had read at her grandmother's house, stories of women who faced adversity and became stronger. "Hi, are you new here?" A male voice interrupted her thoughts. Arya looked up and found a tall young man with dark hair and a warm smile. "I'm Jake, one of the instructors." "Hi, I'm Arya. she responded, trying to hide the shyness that overtook her. This is my first time in a self-defense class. Cool, you're going to love it. It's a great place to learn to defend yourself and who knows, make new friends. Jake smiled, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. Arya felt butterflies in her stomach. He was charming and had an aura that attracted her, but her mind quickly reminded her of Benjamin. The fear of getting hurt again began to resurface, but she pushed it aside. Thanks, I'm excited to start. The class began with warm-up exercises, and Jake was the first to demonstrate some basic techniques. He moved confidently, and Arya noticed how his presence dominated the space. As time passed, her stamina increased, and the emotional pain that accompanied her seemed to be slowly diluted by the exercise. Now, let's practice a defense move against a frontal attack, Jake announced, and the students organized themselves in pairs. Arya was paired with an older woman who encouraged her to do her best. During the exercise, she remembered her ancestors, women who fought for their rights and faced challenges without hesitation. That's right, Arya. Keep going, the woman exclaimed, smiling at her. You're doing great. Thank you, Arya replied, her confidence growing with each movement. She felt alive, powerful. After the class, while Arya was recovering from the effort, Jake approached her again. You did really well today. I'm impressed with your determination. Thank you. I really want to learn more and feel stronger, Arya said, her heart racing. The way he looked at her made the pain of her recent betrayal seem a little more distant. If you need tips, you can count on me. I'll always be here to help, Jake offered, his smile revealing a genuine interest. Arya hesitated, but the idea of sharing more about her life seemed appealing. I'm trying to reconnect with the strength that has always been inside me. After everything that happened, it's hard. Jake tilted his head, listening attentively. I understand. We all have internal battles. The important thing is to know that you're not alone and that you can always find support. Thank you for that, Jake, Arya replied, feeling lighter. It's good to know that there are people who care. As she said goodbye to him, Arya felt a mix of emotions. The attraction to Jake was palpable, but she knew she needed to be cautious. The last thing she wanted was to repeat the mistakes of the past. However, a small smile appeared on her face as she thought of the possibility of a new beginning. As she left the class, Arya looked at the sky, which was beginning to darken. She felt that despite the pain, there was a bright path ahead of her. A new journey was just beginning, and she was determined to move forward, no matter what the future held. Arya sat in the small cafe on the corner, the soft morning light filtering through the windows. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air, but her mind was far from the simple pleasures of life. As she watched people pass by, her heart was divided. On one side, there was Jake with his charm and intensity, and on the other, Benjamin, who insisted he had changed. The indecision consumed her like a storm within. Are you okay? Sarah asked, sliding into the chair across from her. Her friend noticed Arya's distant expression, the traces of worry etched on her face. Arya sighed, looking at the coffee cup in front of her. I'm just thinking about all this. She gestured as if trying to embrace the chaos of her emotions. Jake is amazing, but what about Benjamin? He says he's willing to change. Sarah raised an eyebrow. And do you really believe that? You know him better than anyone. What he did doesn't just disappear, Arya. I know, but Arya hesitated, her gaze lost on the street. He apologized. Says he's really sorry. It's hard to ignore that. I understand, but you can't let yourself be swayed by guilt or the hope that he will become the person you always wanted him to be. You deserve more than that. Sarah's voice was firm but caring. I know. Arya shook her head, but she still found herself trapped in her memories. The laughter, the moments of affection, all that seemed so distant now. But what about Jake? He's different, and I feel something for him. But what if I get hurt again? Sarah leaned forward, her gaze sincere. Arya, love is not a prison. It's a choice. You can choose to open yourself to new experiences, even if it means taking risks. Don't hold on to what doesn't make you happy. Sarah's words echoed in Arya's mind like a mantra that encouraged her to free herself from her emotional chains. However, uncertainty still hung over her like a shadow. I need some time alone, just to think. I don't want to make hasty decisions. That's understandable. Sometimes, the best thing to do is take a step back and see things from a new perspective. Sarah smiled, placing her hand over Arya's. "I'll be here, no matter what you decide." Arya appreciated her friend's presence, and as she lost herself in her thoughts, an involuntary smile emerged as she remembered Jake. He had contagious energy, and their self-defense training wasn't just a way to strengthen her body, but also her mind. The way he encouraged her to push her limits made her feel alive. But on the other hand, there was Benjamin, who sought her out incessantly, sending messages and trying to arrange meetings. In a moment of weakness, she had agreed to a coffee with him, hoping that maybe, just maybe, he could prove that he was really changed. The day of the meeting arrived, and Arya found herself in front of Benjamin in a different cafe, the tension between them palpable. He seemed nervous, his eyes wandering as she sat at the table. "Thank you for coming," he said, breaking the silence. "I wasn't sure if I would," Arya replied, her voice firm, but her heart was racing. "What did you want to say to me?" Benjamin took a deep breath, as if preparing for a speech. I'm sorry for everything that happened. I was selfish and didn't think about the consequences of my actions." He looked into her eyes, searching for a connection that seemed lost. "I want to change, Arya. I want to be the person you deserve." Arya felt a knot form in her stomach. His words were sweet, but the pain of betrayal was still fresh. "And how can I believe you? What proves that this isn't just another empty promise?" I'm in therapy," he said, sincerity etched on his face. "I'm trying to understand why I acted that way, and I want to show you that I can be better." Arya's heart wavered between the desire to believe and the painful reality she lived. "Benjamin, this is a lot to process. I just don't know if I can trust you again." The conversation dragged on, each word a step towards what could be, but Arya felt that she needed more. She needed space to think, to find the clarity she so desired. And when she finally said goodbye to Benjamin, part of her ached, but another part felt light, as if a burden was being lifted from her shoulders. As she walked through the streets of Columbus, Arya felt the wind caress her face, and for a brief moment, she glimpsed the possibility of a future where she could be happy, regardless of Benjamin or Jake. She still had a path to follow, but the journey of self-discovery was just beginning. Arya walked through the streets of Columbus, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The event celebrating the legacy of the women in her family was about to begin, and she could barely contain her anxiety. Upon arriving, she was met with an impressive mural adorned with photos and stories of women who fought for equality and civil rights. There, among the determined faces, was the image of her great-grandmother, a woman with firm eyes and a smile that radiated strength. Arya felt a warmth rise through her body, a wave of pride overwhelming her. She had never felt so connected to her lineage. As she admired the mural, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Sarah, who approached with a sparkle in her eyes. "Look at this, Arya. Your great-grandmother was a true heroine. You must be so proud of her," she exclaimed, pointing to the photo. "I really am, Sarah. I never knew how much she fought. It makes me feel like I have a responsibility to continue this legacy," Arya replied, emotion almost overflowing. "And you are. Look at you. You've already signed up for self-defense classes and are getting back on your feet." "This is just the beginning," Sarah said, encouraging her. Her friend's words brought a smile to Arya's face, but also reminded her of the internal conflicts that still haunted her. Later, as Arya approached the stage to listen to the lectures about the women's legacy, she noticed Benjamin leaning against a wall, his eyes fixed on her. Her heart raced. The tension between them was palpable, a thread about to snap. Benjamin smiled hesitantly, but Arya looked away, focusing on the speaker who was taking the stage. The lecture began with an inspiring account of the struggle of the women of Columbus. Arya listened attentively, absorbing every word. But Benjamin's presence in her peripheral vision was inescapable. He slowly approached her after the lecture, his expression a mix of apology and subtle hope. "Arya, we need to talk," he said, his voice trembling. "About what, Benjamin? About how you betrayed me? Or about how you thought I would just be here waiting for you?" Arya responded, the words coming out with an intensity that surprised her. "I know I messed up. I'm trying to change, but seeing you here makes me realize how much I've lost. I'm so sorry," he said, his eyes reflecting genuine regret. "It's not enough. Arya stated, her voice firm. I need someone who respects me, who values who I am. I'm not the same girl you left. At that moment, Jake appeared, his presence bringing a new energy to the scene. He walked up to Arya, a confident smile on his face. Hi, Arya. I was thinking about you. There's a special event tonight celebrating the women of our city. Would you like to go with me? Arya hesitated, but Jake's offer lit a spark of hope in her heart. Sure, Jake, I'd love to, she replied, feeling that perhaps this was a chance to reconnect with her own dreams and identity. Benjamin watched the scene with a look of despair. Arya, wait, you can't just leave me like this, he pleaded, but the young woman was already moving away. The weight of betrayal was still heavy, but with each step she took towards Jake, Arya felt the burden of pain dissipate a little more. As she walked with Jake, Arya felt a new determination growing inside her. The story of her great-grandmother, the stories of struggle and resilience, all of that inspired her to move forward. She no longer wanted to be just a victim. She wanted to be the protagonist of her own story, capable of rewriting her future. With a confident look, Arya turned to Jake and said, I'm ready to be part of this story. Let's celebrate the legacy of the women who came before us. And with that, she took a step forward, not just towards Jake, but towards her own transformation. Arya was nervous. The event celebrating the women who fought for civil rights in Columbus was about to begin, and the anticipation hung in the air like a charged cloud. The hall was decorated with the vibrant colors of the flag, and the photos of notable women adorned the walls, each one telling a story of courage and resistance. She felt like an intruder in this space, but at the same time, the energy around her propelled her to connect more deeply with her legacy. Jake was by her side, his confident and encouraging smile making Arya feel a little more at ease. However, a shadow of uncertainty hung over her. The revelation that he was the grandson of the woman who betrayed her great-grandmother still echoed in her mind. Arya didn't know if she could dissociate Jake from all the pain that this betrayal represented. The murmurs of the audience began to intensify, and soon the event's organizer called Arya to the stage. The world around her seemed to shrink, and as she walked, her legs trembled. Arya, dear, you can do this, Jake whispered as he held her hand for a moment. That connection calmed her, but the memory of what he represented made her hesitate. On stage, Arya took a deep breath and addressed the audience. Good evening, everyone. I'm here to share my story, which in a way is the story of many women who came before me. Her words began to flow, and with each sentence, she felt more connected to her ancestors. She spoke about the discovery of the old letters, about the pain of betrayal, about how that pain led her to rediscover her inner strength. The faces in the audience were attentive, and she began to feel that her narrative resonated beyond her own experiences. But as Arya continued, the tension grew. When she mentioned the betrayal that destabilized her life, she looked at Jake in the audience and felt a chill in her stomach. What do we do with the past? How can we overcome the scars left by those we love? Jake watched her, his deep eyes revealing a mix of admiration and a touch of sadness. Arya thought about how everything could have been different, how the history of their families seemed like an endless cycle of pain and betrayal. But at that moment, an idea formed in her mind. She wasn't just a continuation of her great-grandmother's story. She could be the one to break that cycle. The audience applauded warmly when she finished her speech, but the euphoria she felt was quickly overshadowed by a new revelation that hit her like lightning. Jake stood up and, with a hesitant look, approached her. Arya, I need to talk to you. Before she could respond, he continued, I didn't know about my grandmother's betrayal until today. When I found out, my heart broke. I never wanted you to feel like you were trapped in this cycle. I want you to know that I'm here to support you and not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Arya felt a mix of relief and confusion. Jake, this is complicated. I don't know if I can get over this. I understand, but please don't judge me for something beyond my control. We can create a new story, Arya, one that isn't marked by betrayals but by love and mutual respect. She looked into his eyes, searching for an answer. The pain and betrayal were still fresh in her mind, but the idea of creating something new, of writing a new narrative, attracted her. Maybe, Jake, but I need time. Time to think about what I really want. He nodded, his gaze full of understanding. I'll be here, waiting for you. As Arya walked away from Jake, a sense of peace began to settle within her. The truth was that her real struggle wasn't just against the betrayals of the past, but for building a future where love and self-sufficiency could coexist. And by taking this step, she felt stronger than ever, finally at peace with herself. After facing betrayal, a revelation about an ancestral secret transformed my pain into a new outlook on life. Instead of seeing suffering as an end, I realized it could be an opportunity for personal growth and discovery. How would you react if you saw your adversities in a new light? Reflect on how your own experiences might reveal secrets that transform your worldview. If this story touched you, don't forget to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now. It's, in my opinion, one of the best stories I've ever told, the most emotional one. And if you liked what you heard now, you'll definitely love this other story too. Subscribe to the channel, click on the video that's on your screen now, and I'll see you in a few seconds.